Hey gang, Kevin here, Life22, and we are doing a book review on Beyond Good and Evil by Friedrich Nietzsche. Um, my pronunciation might not be exactly that. Friedrich Nietzsche, whatever. Um, but recommendation from Jordan Peterson. Um, and let's see here. So it's considered a philosophy book. Um, it was 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. It was 9 parts, and each part was broken into little sub chapters. And essentially, it was like just things he had written down throughout the course of his life, from what I've gathered. Little philosophical things. So some of them were like coherent, some of them were very like you'd have to think about them. So this like unpacking of the book is probably going to miss the mark in a lot of qualities. It's first off, I did it over a month. I've read the book over 2 months ago. I finished it, and I have another one I've got to review in the meantime. But the other part is that that part might be falling short, but there's so much here to unpack in each one of these little excerpts. You got to think that it's not like you're reading like Harry Potter book 1 and then jumping to 2. You're like reading Harry Potter and then jumping to book 3 of like movie 3 of Star Wars, right? So you're in a different medium, let alone a different like written universe, right? So it's like he's just kind of like, some of these are just like thoughts, and they tried to get compiled into like somewhat categories, but even then, like you start compiling categories of thoughts, like I don't have the thoughts, if I'm thinking about like blue skies, right, and I'm writing philosophy about that, and then like the next day I'm writing philosophy, my thoughts on like the like the color of wood used in violins and like the style of them and what, what I mean? Like, well, I could write about that, but that they're two different thoughts. And then all of a sudden 10 years goes by and you try to put all my thoughts that I've had every day in like many different categories. And it's like, well, yeah, so like the thoughts of this, blue skies from this genre, from this time period to this, you know what I mean? So it's kind of how it seemed to be. And there was, you could see some of those differences. And some made sense and some seemed like he unpacked them early on. And then later on, he like repacked them and unpacked them again. It was good context, if you will, like, or it was good content, in that it allowed you to unpack something that you didn't intend to unpack, or maybe he'd spent years thinking about and then just threw the last excerpt of that thought down. And so you were able to hear his final product and then like, I never thought about that topic. I've never thought about it this way or that way, or I've never heard of that old proverb. And now he's breaking it down for me. So now I have an old proverb and a very great thinker's interpretation of it, right? So it gives you kind of, sometimes like everybody thinks that like Cliff Notes are where it's at, right? Like or not where it's at, right? Like you have to start from the beginning and come up with your own thought process and have, and come up with your own end. Well, yeah, but there's so much that's happened in human history, and so many other people have thought about these things before. Why would you want to just start at the beginning, start from scratch, when you've got, you could hear the idea, you could hear the concept, you say, hey, I've got this problem, it spawns from this. Oh, there's 1,700 years of of thought process on these, cascading through different cultures and generations. And look at these people, look at this guy here, Sun Tzu says this about it, Sophocles says this about it, Aristotle said this, Friedrich Nietzsche had some thoughts on it here, Freud had some thoughts on it here, why not jump in? So this was it was all over the place, and like it unpacks a lot of ideas, and maybe there was some more coherence to it, and maybe the second listen around, but obviously I'm on quite a path that like it'll be years before I come back to this, and maybe that's part of my journey on this. But so starting off, and I guess we'll go through in chronological order here. So he Beyond Good and Evil kind of gives a quick excerpt. He gives you a prologue, and then he starts with this like little subchapter. So like, suppose truth is a woman, right? And then he jumps into part 1 on the prejudices of philosophers. And then, like, just to give you a couple excerpts here, right? So, like, some of the subchapters are the will to truth, what's abstractive about, you tell I'm tired, what's attractive about looking at all philosophers, do you want to live? It strikes me that nowadays, so far as the superstitions, that individual philosophical ideas, and people must forgive me. Like that's part 1, right? There's like a lot of different, just thinking about the titles, it's almost so, and there was a lot of good stuff, and some of it like you didn't get, and it was kind of, I would have to convey relay a lot of these like deeper thought processes and things like that like they might not reveal themselves to you for years later. Like when I first read Crime and Punishment, like some people said, oh, it changed their lives, and I didn't know what they meant. And even after I finished it, I was like, I didn't understand what they were talking about. It just seemed like a 2-bit novel. And then like I was able to start like it was almost like it like imprinted the book in the back of my head, and all of a sudden now I could see archetypes of different characters from that novel more clearly in people that I know in my own life. Like, that guy is a Raskolnikov, that guy is it conveys Litavesa, the niece, I think that was her name. But see, it imprinted on my head. So like it's like you almost have to read through this or listen through it and hear the different thoughts that he has. And some of them like they kind of clicked, and some of them they didn't. And the retention of them is how relatable they are to your own life. And that's kind of where some of these books fall into place. Like, it's hard to say this was a great read. Like, it's a classic read because it breaks down so much stuff for you, and you might have to reference back to this at a later date, which is probably what I'm going to do with some of these books, is just go back to it. But, part 2, the free spirit. Then there's associated an accompanying PDF with this that comes with the Audible book. Part 3 is the religious nature, and and then aphorisms and the interludes. I'm probably mispronouncing that because I don't know what an aphorism is, which I will look up for the next podcast. So, that was part 4. Part 5 is natural history of morals. Part 6 is we scholars. Part 7 is our virtues. Part 8 is peoples and fatherlands. And based on the time period that Friedrich Nietzsche was alive, he describes being a German in these different ways that he looked at the world. I know that the Nazis took a lot of, I think it was his sister or sister-in-law, or they took a lot of stuff and bastardized it for the Nazis, and so he was considered a Nazi. But I think it was the same way that I believe I believe what I've heard from other sources like Jordan Peterson, that like it's more or less, and from what I gather, it's more or less like they took his ideas and they like claimed them as their own, and next thing you know, he's now a Nazi. But he wasn't. Like he writes about this, and he's got a lot of resentment and distaste for things that resemble Nazi. So it's like, you know, it's Tom Sawyer, right? Like it's Huck Finn, right? It's Mark Twain in essence, right? Mark Twain wrote Huck Finn is his distaste for slavery, but he wrote it with almost like an exaggerated amount of the N-word to portray his distaste for slavery and all men's right to be created equal. But people go, oh, we got to ban Huck Finn. Like, why are we banning Huck Finn? Well, because it has the N-word in it. Well, it's like, but that's not, you're missing the point then, I guess, right? Like, it's just, it's mind-boggling how some people interpret things. And but yeah, no, so that whole part 8 right there, I remember specifically it talked about tyranny and like just his disdain for it. But part 9, what is noble, and then kind of every enhancement in the type. I mean, some of the subchapters on that one, as a result of a stroll. So like right there, like he kind of writes, you know, these are kind of like final afterthoughts, just kind of things you just, the more a psychologist, the most profoundly divides, you know, the genius of the heart. And then part 10, if you will, it's called After Song. And then he has a song, O Noon of Life. So this is about an 8.5-hour listen. It's not a hugely long book like some of the other ones we've broken down, like the Gulag Archipelagos at like 30 hours a pop, 3 parts. So you're talking almost 90 hours. Because I think it's like one is like 30, one's 35, and then the last one's like 18 to 25, somewhere in there. It's like just under 90 hours. It's a long, but you know, there's a lot. Like that's something you'd commit to memory 90 hours, right? Like only some of it's going to resonate with you. It's the theory behind you only gain about 10 to 15% of what someone is teaching you, and so you have to go back and relearn, repetition, and beat it into yourself. But so yeah, I mean, I think overall it was, you know, it was definitely worth the listen. It's just, it's hard to describe. I mean, I guess I'm 13 minutes into describing it, but I enjoyed it. You know, not all of it got committed to memory, as you can tell. Some of it got more ingrained, just like as I described. Like I can remember parts of the story of Crime and Punishment, but like then all of a sudden, like how people acted and the weirdness of it, even though it was in the 1600s or 1700s or whatever the hell it was some far away time ago that the Crime and Punishment was based, because it was based on Tolstoy. Was it Tolstoy? Jeez, now it's gonna drive me nuts. No, Dostoevsky. Yeah, Dostoevsky. Yeah. So, yeah, anyways. See, I should do these in the morning when I'm awake, or waking up. Waking up is better than like me like passing out. So, but anyways, guys, so I appreciate you guys watching the show. Keep an eye out tomorrow. I'm going to try to get like a 1 to 3 part review of a product we're trying. This was just me on my own. I had an issue and I went to the internet. And I like to find a product for everything that I do in my life. I'm starting to fall into that path, right? Like, I have people that are loyal to me, I'm loyal to people, and I started realizing, like, there should be brands that I'm loyal to, especially with the way of our culture nowadays, where everything's going left and right, and far left off center, and it's just, you know, you got brands that are like picking sides in cultural issues. It's like, okay, well then I guess now I have to pick a brand. Before I didn't care. And there's certain brands that hold values for why they exist, right? Like I use Dr. Squatch. All their stuff's all natural. They're doing a lot of the dirty work for me on making sure that like I'm not putting garbage chemicals and detergents all over my skin. And it's natural, naturally sourced, and I believe most of it is made in America. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things like they kind of hold to some of those values. I'm really enjoying Black Rifle coffee. I've got to get the coffee for the house, but like every time I get the opportunity to see one of those like pre-made cans, the little espresso drinks, I go for one of them. Probably not the healthiest for me. I mean, if I can get to the coffee and then make it at home, it's going to be way healthier. It's going to fit right into my dietary schedule. But, you know, things like that. So, but we will catch you guys next time. Life22, catch us tomorrow and see what product that I've discovered on the internet and that I will be trying out for the first time tomorrow. And then we'll do a couple follow-ups throughout the day and you'll get my take on it. So catch you guys next time. Life22.